It's time for the movie rating. Tonight's victim is a writer, director, producer, and occasional puppeteer, and that's Ethan Wiley. Hello.
Hello, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, you sound so ecstatic. I ain't feeling it. Let's go.
Let's start talking about the puppeteering. Who cares about the writing and the directing?
Yeah, who cares? I mean, let's talk about Gremlins. Yeah, just so you know, he did do some puppeteering for Gremlins, and he also wrote some films such as House 2, Children of Corn 5, and so forth. Many other films, including independent films, correct?
Including which one?
Independent films.
Yes, yeah. I wrote the original screenplay for House, and then wrote and directed the sequel. And most of the projects that I've directed, for some reason, I've also written, and that wasn't by design. It's just kind of the way it's been. So, except for House, all of my credits are generally, or if I'm directing, I've always been the writer at the same time.
Yeah.
And in 2006, I formed my own production company, Wiseacre Films, and we've produced 5 movies since then, and with an emphasis on digital filmmaking. Before I formed Wiseacre, I was looking at the big shifts that were taking place in the film industry, budgets getting bigger and bigger, and budgets getting smaller and smaller, and the kind of middle class of movies kind of disappearing. And so it was becoming an industry where either you get a credit on $100 million budget movie and above, or you're working in kind of the low budget realm.
Do you prefer that way, though?
I really do like the independence of it, and kind of being my own boss. But part of that for me was just kind of coming to terms with being a producer, and taking on, I'm going to do the legal work that's required, and working with the unions, and I had earlier in my career very much focused on, I don't want to be a producer, I want to just do the creative thing. I'm not good at the kind of business side of things, but I've always been very organized, I guess, as a director, and involved in all the aspects of the filmmaking. And so I realized that I acted as a producer in a lot of ways of the films that I had directed, and even on House, I was organizing, and advising the producer and director on how to do the special effects, who to hire to do the special effects, and so it's not the usual role of just the writer to do those things. And so I've always been involved in the craft of putting together the movie, and I'm a musician, and so I've actually done music for movies as well, and so a lot of those different weird skill sets make for a good producer, because I know a little bit about each aspect of filmmaking. I'm an expert in none of them, but a generalist. I'm a generalist, and so I can kind of deal with a lot of different aspects. So I decided to start my own company, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we've been doing films with these digital cameras since 2006, and really working to try to get a cinematic look and feel to these low budget movies, and bring hopefully some good writing and some production values to these films. And a few of them have turned out pretty good. So that's been my emphasis for the last 5 years. And I'm developing a couple of other larger budget projects that aren't so easy to do on a low budget independent scale as well. Always have been, always will be, I guess. But as a producer, I really wanted to get my feet wet and learn that side of the business, and it was much easier to do that doing a lower budget, because I could approach financiers and they would say, yes, that's not too much money that you're asking for. Yeah, we'll give you a green light to do that. Where when you go into the higher budgets, you can wait for years sometimes to try to get just one project off the ground. We don't even bother with Avid machines. You know, I mean, it's a very much a guerrilla kind of do-it-yourself style to the filmmaking. But yeah, it's rewarding on the things you learn, and also just the control you have. And we've actually had a lot of fun making these movies.
Yeah, I mean, usually between the big and low budget films, it's like when it's a big budget film, you also somehow got to make that money back if it's like let's say a $10 million film or $1 billion film.
That's right, and I'm proud to say that no one has ever lost money on any movie I've ever been involved in. They've either made a modest profit or large profit, and I'm proud of that. That I've never had a turkey.
Yeah.
And so that's partly the game, is to work within your means and do your best within that, and not overstep and get yourself into trouble. And so we've been pretty good at doing that over the years, and working with some good partners. It's always good to have good collaborators, and I've been working a lot with a director named Wiley, who most recently directed the Scorpion King 3 that's coming out soon, and he did Death Race 2.
Ah, yeah.
Which came out earlier this year with Luke Goss and Danny Trio.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rule and I have collaborated on a bunch of different things, where if I'm the director chair, he's been doing the cinematography, being the DP, camera operator, and then we collaborate on the stories or co-produce them. Or if he's directing, I write the script and produce the film. And so, part of it too is not having an ego and being able to say, hey, okay, you got some money to do a movie. Okay, I'll move over to the producer chair, and you take the director chair, and next time it might be the other way around. And so, working with Richard Jeffries, it's the same thing. We kind of figure out who's most appropriate to direct a certain thing, and then the other partner, does whatever they can to help that director get the movie in the can, and get the shots he needs. And so I'll shoot second unit stuff for the other films of the people directing. I worked that way with Jim Isaac in the past, where Jim Isaac is the director of Jason X, and we most recently Pig Hunt did second unit directing for me on Children of the Corn, and so I've always liked to work that way, finding good people that you can really trust, and then give them a lot of responsibility, rather than it being I'm not much one for the auteur theory. And I think that probably comes from being a writer first. That how important the script is, and you see all the focus always totally on the directors, and realizing that great directors can't make a good movie without a good script.
Yeah.
And so I never really had that thing of directing as the absolute end all, and so I love to direct and do any opportunity I have, absolutely. But to me, it's always more important to tell the story and make a great movie, and whoever it takes to get that done, then that's what we try to do.
Yeah, and especially when those two occupations, it's a big pressure on that artist, because especially if you're working for a major company, sometimes you don't get the freedom what you want to do, and you got to do it in this amount of time, in a really short period of time, and some films just go down that way.
Yeah, and that's always a challenge at any budget level. The same pressures. It's always you always maximize how you spend the dollars, whether you're doing $100,000 production or $100 million production. It's amazing how you run into the same kind of issues, just at a different scale.
Yeah.
And the guy who's doing the $100 million movie, and he says, I only have 80 days to shoot it. I can't do it. And then there's the guy who's making the $200,000 movie. So I only have 12 days. I can't do it.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. Especially when you get a specific actor and you overpay him over the entire crew.
Yeah, well, it's like the rest of society these days. Not to get into big political commentary, but the Los Angeles Lakers have the same issue. They pay a couple of superstars monster salaries, and everybody else is on minimum wage. Now, the NBA minimum wage is pretty nice, but seeing that everywhere, and it's happening in the film business too, where there's a couple stars get paid millions, and the rest of the crew is told you need to work at minimum union scale or below, to make it all work.
Yeah.
And same thing happens at giant banks and on Wall Street. The janitor's not making hundreds of millions. A couple of guys at the top are. And so I think that's just it's the same in the film business as Wall Street or the NBA or whatever.
Yeah, it's all chaotic, man. But as far as when you're writing and directing, as well as even producing, do you prefer studio or do you actually prefer the location? Because some actually prefer studio.
It really depends on the project. Studios are nice to have where you can control the environment. Like, I couldn't imagine doing a movie like Gremlins totally on location.
Yeah.
Some location work, and but for something like that, we needed to build sets that had space underneath for the puppeteers, and you're not likely to go and find a house that has that kind of structure for it. So every film has its own requirements, and I just produced a movie last year called The Butterfly Room, starring Barbara Steele, the Scream Queen. Barbara Steele, the star of Hidden the Pendulum with Vincent Price, and she was in Fellini's 8.5 and all that. Anyway, we shot everything on location, and then we did a couple days of pickup inserts on sets, because we really needed the control for doing kind of certain effect sequences, and it was a cost thing too, where, hey, it's actually, we can build these sets on a small sound stage for the things that we need, cheaper than renting out the apartment again and getting the church parking lot across the way and getting the permits. And so when you're in a sound stage, a lot of those challenges of location shooting, which can sometimes be a nightmare, go away, and you really have control.
Or just find some rundown house like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hey, there's one sitting out in the field. Let's use it.
Yeah, but at the same time, when we're doing our more low-budget guerrilla filmmaking, we will build the story sometimes out of locations that we find. The mantra is, your location is your production design when you're a lower-budget movie, and you can't build sets and things. The movie Deadwater, a.k.a. Black Ops, starring Lance Henriksen, came out of finding the location first. Oh, there's this really cool World War II boat that's sitting there, empty, available for rental. If we can cut a deal with the guys who run it as a kind of naval history museum, then we can film there. All right, let's come up with a storyline around this old World War II boat, and then we have a lot of cool production value because you're on this really amazing old ship with engine rooms and big cavernous storage, rooms and lots of interesting details and things, with very little money and brutal. With Jeffrey Combs, I built a lot of the story around the location where I kind of knew I wanted to do a small town kind of thing. Found a small town north of Los Angeles where I'd filmed before, and I was kind of aware of some of the things the town had to offer. So I thought, oh yeah, they have a school right there. We'll have this killer be a school teacher that we can use in school. And so that's but I like that. I kind of like being said, here, are given, here are your limitations, here's what you have to work with. Now do something creative within those limitations. And that's always a fun challenge, to try to come up with an interesting story with the tools that you have available to you. One of the last movies we did, Bear, came about because our stunt coordinator, Dickie Beard, said, hey, I know a guy who's got a bear. He's got a grizzly bear, and it doesn't kill people. It's well-trained.
Wow.
And so we were like, okay, let's come up with a bear movie. And, also making sure that, of course, that there's a market for the style of the film. And we always vet that kind of first with distributors and sales agents
That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
But it's just like now that with these big films, as I said, it's always a new era now, and we got remakes out the ass, and we got a few occasional creeping up prequels here and there, and now they're making nothing but superhero films. Apparently, that's the biggest new trend.
You know, the other day I looked at IMDb, and they have a thing on there where they kind of track the top movies that are coming up, and 9 of the 10 were either a sequel or based on a comic book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, comic books have been popular for years, but it's just like the whole, I think it's popular now. People are starting to watch this stuff, like what the older superhero films, like what they would watch, like Daredevil or the old Batman series or something like that. Oh, let's make a new one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have nothing against comic book movies, but when that's all that's being made, that gets a little frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pretty simple thing. Comic books are pre-sold. They have audience awareness already built into them, and that's why the studios do them. You know, the example I always give is if I were to come to you and say, "Hey, I want to do a movie about cavemen," but it's going to be kind of a satire of suburbia, and so they'll have cars that they kind of push with their feet, and instead of a dog, they'll have a dinosaur. And if you're the executive of the studio, you go, okay, that sounds kind of weird. What are you going to call it? And I say, I'm going to call it the Stonemans. and they go, no, thanks, pass. Now you go out on the street and you say, excuse me, have you ever heard of the Flintstones? And the person goes, yeah. And you ask 100 people in a row, and 99 of them go, yeah, we've heard of the Flintstones. Also, yeah, I know that song. Yeah, Flintstones, we're modern, Stone Age family. Yeah, I always love that song. Okay, you go back to the studio executive, you say, we just went on the street, and 99 of 100 people had heard of the Flintstones. 88 of them could sing the entire theme song. Should we make a movie about that? And they'll go, oh, yeah, we should, right away. Because we don't have to market it. We don't have to sell it to people. We don't have to try to explain to people what it is. Where the Stonemans, you would be very, you have to go in this elaborate campaign, and now this imagining that the Flintstones doesn't exist, right? Of having to explain to people this weird kind of premise about it takes place in caveman times, but it's really a kind of modern satire of suburbia, and it's going to be kind of based on the Jackie old, the honeymooners. And people be going, what are you talking about? That's the most asinine idea I've ever heard. It makes no sense. But, the Flintstones, yeah, I know all about it. So that's with everything, through the film business. And so when people go, why are they making a thing about an old 70s TV show that wasn't that good in the first place? You know why? This has been on reruns for 30 years, and everybody knows the name of that show. Everybody knows Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, and of course, you got the Jetsons, too. It's like almost similar.
Yeah, and so that's, when it's very difficult to get, and takes a lot of money to market a movie nowadays, if the marketing department has their work done for them already, or a percentage of it done already, then it's a big giant corporation. Why would they say, let's do something original? Because it's going to cost tens of millions more to try to explain to audiences what it is, to get them interested in it, and then we don't have any guarantee that there's an audience for it. But something based on a best-selling video game, book, TV show, comic, then they go, yeah, we know there's an audience already. We know that this has already been proven in other markets to be a successful product. So now we're going to piggyback on the success that other people have already developed and established with that and cash in.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works. And so there are more opportunities to do original things, in the lower budget realm, I think.
Yeah.
But even that's a challenge too, A lot of the companies say, well, we just want to develop things out of the library we already own.
Yeah, if it's like especially with horror films, if it's an existing franchise that was popular for the longest time, what they're going to do, they're going to remake it and point it toward it's supposed to be for the old school fans, but it goes toward the younger generation, so they say.
Well, and I think maybe that's what they're banking on. Hey, the old fans of the old version will come to check out the new one, and we'll, expose the Wolfman franchise to a new, young generation, But also, they own the rights. They know that the and that they won't ever have a dispute over who, do we own the rights to this product? Yes, we do. We have for 50 years. Okay, let's do a remake of that.
Yeah.
Don't have to negotiate with anybody. We don't have to fight with anybody over the rights. I was one of the writers of SpiderMan, among many writers.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, actually, which one? The first one or the second one? Or the third one?
I was the writer before James Cameron.
Okay.
And there were many writers after me. But the legal rights of that were a mess. And I wanted to make that movie for 15 years, and I couldn't get it made because certain rights have been sold off. And like when I did my draft, they told me you can use the Spider-Man character, but you can't use any of the storylines because we have the rights to Spider-Man, the character, but we don't have the rights to the stories in the comics. And okay, so you had to make up a new villain. You can't use whatever villains were in there. You got to come up with something separate. So all this weird stuff that takes place. So once they know they've got the rights to something, they've got that sewn up, then it's just so much easier for them to make a big tent pole picture from.
Yeah, unless the economy's shit, then they'll hold off for it. But when it comes to that, do you think it's more of a cop out when they do remakes like this for the writer or the director themselves? Do you think it's more of a cop out when they do it?
When who does what?
Well, if a writer and director agrees to do a remake, do you think it's more of a cop out doing it because it's a remake off an existing film?
I think it depends on the film, the circumstances. There are films that had great premises that were done pretty poorly the first time around, and you think, hey, that's worthy of a remake. Or maybe it's been many, many years, and like a new artist covering an old song, that maybe actually will turn people and fans of the story, and they'll go back and check out the original movie as well, and it could be a positive. Then there's other ones that where a movie that was successful 2 years ago is being remade, and you scratch your head a little bit and go, really? They're remaking it that fast?
Yeah, some of them just... some of them is either based... It's good and bad at the same time. Some of them are based on ego and say, hey, I'm going to change this and this. I like this a lot better than the original. I'll change this and this. And sometimes the film does go well as far as remake, and a majority of them just don't.
Yeah, well, I've heard rumors that they're talking about remaking Gremlins.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know where that stands right now, but yeah. This days, and it's kind of, again, it's all through the society in a way too, where music now is based out of DJs recycling other people's music rather than creating original music of their own. Mm-hmm. And so this kind of recyclable culture that we have, I think, is losing interest in what's original and what's there to be just kind of reconfigured and transformed into a variation on something that's already been established. And so I think it's the way that the culture is going in a lot of different ways too.
Yeah.
And the debate over what's original or not, they always say, oh, there's only three stories, right? Man versus man, man versus nature, and man versus self. And then, there's only 20 kind of plots. You can almost boil any story down to these 20 different essential kind of plot lines that have a kind of mythic element to them. And so Shakespeare based most of his stuff on other people's plays, historical events. There's not a whole lot that he did that was original. He's considered the greatest writer in world history. So I think it always has to do with context, the quality of how something's being done, and it is the director or the writer bringing a new, fresh take, so to speak, on.
Well, a lot of them will say it's a reboot, but really, come on, just say remake.
Yeah,
just say it.
The reboot.
It's a reboot. You say it's a remake or it's a prequel? Well, it's a cross between a prequel and it's a pre-make. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Technology is so advanced in film, and it's amazing things. But CGI, it's the biggest thing that everybody uses now. And you got animatronic makers, puppeteers, that are doing these films, but a lot of them are going to have a job because of CGI. Do you think there's possible room or hope for these animatronics again?
That's a good question. question. I think that in some ways the focus on CGI has been driven by moneyed interests that just see that as kind of an exciting thing. So even when it doesn't apply, or it is the best way to achieve an effect, people say, oh, we got to have a CGI creature. And you say, well, actually we can make it look far more realistic with some more traditional techniques. People don't want to hear it. Oh, no, that's old school. No, that's yesteryear. And so I think the pendulum might be swinging back a little bit, because there's been some movies with very disappointing CGI results, even when hundreds of millions are spent. To me, the best example is I, Legend.
Yeah.
Where they created these kind of humanoid, vampire-y things that absolutely do not look real for one moment. And for me personally, it made the movie very unscary, because I never really felt that the characters, the human characters, were in the presence of the actual creatures. And I thought, God, why didn't they get Rick Baker or somebody to do a fabulous makeup job on these characters? And then there's elements of CGI and special effects, visual effects, that you can bring into that process now. And so I think some of the more sophisticated things that are going on now are where people are blending techniques. And a lot of what we're developing now ourselves, we're talking about that approach. Chris Wiley, who was a makeup effects artist, has really stayed on top of a lot of these technological developments. So we'll talk about ways that we can enhance an animatronic effect with CGI, so that you have an actual physical thing that is then adorned with certain CGI capabilities. And to me, it's all about what's the best technique to tell the story. And when I was working for Chris Wiley and working at ILM when I first started my career, that was always the emphasis of Ken Ralston or Chris Wiley or Joe Johnston or whatever, was always about telling the story. And these guys were effects artists, but they weren't always like effects for effects' sake. They'd be the first ones to tell you, oh, no, let's just do something very simple here. We don't need to get too complicated, because that will tell the story better than if we get complicated. And so, I think that's what filmmakers just have to focus on, is what's the most effective way to do this? And sometimes a makeup effect or an animatronic can give the director much more versatility, much more flexibility, longer shooting time with their creature. Other times can be the opposite, where animatronics is a pain in the ass and not at all conducive to the situation you've got, and it'd be so much easier to do a certain effect with CGI or as an optical effect, rather than trying to do it as a practical or realistic thing. So it's really, designing the sequences, really looking at what techniques can best tell the story and work within the production budget. And so, that's what we're working on, is integrating these things. And sometimes, too, you'll have a certain shot as an animatronic and then a certain shot as a CGI shot, and they don't blend. Are we looking at a different creature now? So, it's also making sure that these techniques work seamlessly and integrate, so that you're not, as an audience member, going, oh, yeah, that's the puppet. Oh, that's the special, that's the CGI. You want people just seeing it as a character. William Randall Cook, the animation director for the Lord of the Rings series, I think it's something that Peter Jackson, did very effectively with the Lord of the Rings series, was knowing when to use stop motion animation, when to use motion capture, CGI, when to use makeup effects, when and got a lot out of those movies, because he's really smart with those techniques.
Yeah, CGI. There's a proper use for it, but it's just pretty much so overly used at this point. They just slap it all over a film these days. It's a common thing, but I mean, come on, tone it down at certain points. And you don't have to slap it all over. You paint the entire film with that shit.
Well, and great movies have been done entirely with green screens. But one of the things that I remember from doing Gremlins, for example, was that there's some shots in Gremlins where the dog is first checking out the Mogwai in the box, and it kind of jumps back all scared and everything. Well, those are all real responses from the dog. None of that was trained behavior. We thought the dog would smell and know immediately that it wasn't a real creature or something. So we brought the dog on the set, opened that box, the creature popped out. That dog thought it was real, and there's a couple of really amazing, funny shots. Now that's a little thing, but to me, we never would have gotten those shots if you had been doing some kind of green screen CGI creature. And the same thing goes for humans. It's funny when you get humans interacting. We all know this with little kids. You get a little puppet on your hand, and the little kid will suddenly get lost in the fantasy of thinking this is like a real creature that it's talking to. And I think we do the same thing as adults. We have to suspend our disbelief, and the actors will do that too. Although they'll really start acting with the makeup effects or the creature that's there in front of them, something tangible that they can physically touch or that they're actually seeing, rather than, okay, pretend there's a monster that you're talking to a character here against a green screen. And it's an actor's job is to be imaginative and be able to pull that off. But I think you get a lot of happy accidents and interesting interaction with the real creature. I wonder if E.T. would have been the same, even though I didn't think the E.T. looked particularly realistic, or it was a very good creature in some ways. It looked like a piece of wood.
Yeah.
But the kid sells it. His response to that creature is so wonderful, so genuine, so sweet, and that you totally buy the creature, not because of the creature, but because of the actor who's responding to the creature. And that's something I learned early on too. That is so important, and that's something that you get from practical or animatronic type effects that you don't get.
No.
Or, working on with a green screen. So again, it's always what's the technique, what's the best way to tell the story, and I'd argue that if you're going to do a remake of E.T., that you should do an animatronic creature, because you're going to have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old working with that thing, and they're going to have so much more fun, working off a real character than one they're trying to imagine against the green screen.
Yeah, if it's CGI'd, the kid is not really going to react to that creature because it doesn't exist.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Here, I want you to talk to it. I want you to act scared from the closet. It's because some dude's like popping out of the closet.
Right, yeah, and also to me, another aspect of that is you can have a character punch the thing. You can have them actually beat on it, and you can see the physical interaction. And if it's done well, to me, that heightens the sense of jeopardy, because I'm thinking, oh, wow, I'm seeing this guy getting slammed by something, and I can see it's really physically hitting him, or he's physically, hitting it. And again, there's certain animation stuff that's fantastic, and you can't tell it. Other times, though, where you just feel like, yeah, we're looking at two different planes of existence here. We don't really feel the blood and the sweat, the creature, coming at our hero, and so it's just as a storytelling thing. I always like to, I want my suspense to be suspenseful, and I think sometimes the CGI effects are visually spectacular, and you kind of have a wow factor, but they don't really viscerally, give you a jolt or get you excited.
Well, look at Jaws, man. That thing was definitely not CGI'd.
Yeah.
They built
Nowadays,
that thing.
I'm sure there'd be a lot of shots that would be better CGI, but when that thing chomps down on Robert Shaw, even though it kind of looks mechanical, that's a guy being chomped on.
Yeah, but it does have that real life look to it. Like, they could scare the shit out of you. If you were to have that shark today as an animatronic, no CGI or anything like that, and no one knew about this, and they touch it and they think it's a real shark.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, because it's animatronic, man. It's not CGI. You can't get the full effect. So yeah, of course, there's CGI is not entirely bad. It's just certain points where it has a proper use to it. CGI is a very handy tool. It definitely is.
And through film history, you have a bunch of tools available to you. Be smart and use the right tool, and don't just because you're enamored with, hey, look at the zoom lens. Now let's just use it constantly through the whole movie. No.
Yeah.
Lens is fantastic, but use it sparingly. Use it when it's most effective. So the same goes for effects. You don't want to take any technology. And so I think there was definitely a stretch of films there for a few years that were going in that direction because of the excitement, because of the innovation that was developing so quickly. And I think people got very caught up and intoxicated on it, and would sometimes be blind to the results. kind of the emperor's new clothes in a way. You know, you go like, okay, I know you spent $100 million, but it sucks. It doesn't look real.
Yeah. Do it again. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, you know, that like with anything, then people kind of settle down a little bit. And same thing with 3D. You know, every movie's got to be 3D. Well, no, but it's great when certain ones are. So let's think about which. You know, if the story, if the style of filmmaking is going to really play into a 3D experience and enhance the storytelling, or whether it's just going to be kind of a distraction. So,
it's great for kid films, like like Shrek or something like that. It's great for that.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as film wise, it's kind of a gamble because it's got to actually look decent, especially in 3D.
Yeah, and we're actually with some of our independent lower budget films working on that challenge right now of making a 3D film that will be of quality and won't give people a headache. And there are, just like with other things right now, there are all these new tools coming online every day, new cameras, new software that are beginning to get some of these things within.
Yeah.
A certain level, and it also helps with the financial models of, hey, that this adds some value to the film, so we can get a little more budget, you know, to make a better movie overall. Because you know, people are willing to invest more if they think they're going to have a 3D version of the film, and so, you know, that's good for a filmmaker if they, you know, can get some more money for production value and all that. And you know, there are the detractors, people who hate it, people who love it, but I think it's here to stay for a while at least. All the new Blu-ray machines, everything soon will all be 3D capable, and it will become just another option, you know, for a consumer and for entertainment. Hey, do we want to see it in 3D? Do we not? And you know, ultimately, it's good for the consumer if they have some options and choices. So
yeah.
I'm not opposed to it, even though I don't need it. I'm happy watching a film in 2D, but if people get enjoyment out of it and the technologies continue to develop. I guess the main reason I don't like 3D is I wear glasses, and so I just have to put those clunky glasses over my glasses.
Yeah.
That's the most comfortable way to watch a movie. I'd rather not do that.
So what, you want to look like a nerd or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's as I said, technology has advanced so much, and now everything's so digital. Everyone's putting their films on digital now. You can just download that stuff. It's not a bad thing, but it's also at the same time not a good thing.
Well, it's not good for you know, writers and directors' pocketbooks. You know, it's the old thing where, yeah, I'm personally directly affected when people download my movie, because a lot of times nowadays you don't get a lot of money up front to make the film.
Yeah.
Budget's under control, so you didn't, you know, get rich making the film. Now you've got a piece of the profits, and that's not just gravy. No, that's what you live on. And so I'm personally affected every time someone downloads, you know, a version of my movie. And so, you know, but I put the blame not on the consumer, but on the corporations and technologies that developed these technologies that allow people to so easily pirate their content. I mean, you know, they should have figured out a way to build in protections and things before unleashing this unwieldy beast. And so they've kind of they've created the problem themselves, because people weren't downloading pirated copies of movies before they had the technology readily available to do that. So,
no.
And I think that the metaphor of, well, would you steal a car is not really right, because to steal a car, you have to go into the street where there are cops, you have to risk being seen, you have to get a crowbar and smash in the window, then you got a hot wire. Very complicated, dangerous, risky. And so if someone were to say to you, look, I will deliver Lamborghini to your door tomorrow, brand new, all you have to do is hit this key on your computer here, just tap it with your finger. And the chance of you getting caught are 1 in a trillion. You'll never get caught. I mean, you'll have a brand new Lamborghini and you never have to look back. Yeah. Most people would hit that key. You know?
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do is with your finger, to push down a little with your index finger. You know, and so that's easy for people to do, and much easier than stealing a car or robbing a bank. So
yeah,
they're going to do it. You know, and I don't know one person, myself included, that doesn't somewhere have they didn't pay for, or a video that someone made a copy of, and even if you're always making efforts to pay and all that, somewhere in your CD collection there's a CD you didn't pay for.
Oh, as a matter of fact, I got a couple actual film discs like that
even
too.
when we're not conscious about it or try to be good about it, there's a pirated something somewhere around, always. So.
Oh yeah, even the people that go to theaters, which is also an insult. People go to theaters and they'll actually film the film.
Yeah, but for me, it's like I'll wait a few weeks till the DVD's out. And then get it on Netflix, right?
But they stick it on a DVD, they burn it onto a DVD, and they try to sell it. That's bad.
Yeah, but they're going to be with the new digital distribution systems, video on demand, cable subscriptions like HBO. There's no reason to try to download and pirate True Blood on HBO because it's available to you for free.
Yeah, it's not
in
those.
You're paying a subscription, but I think we're going to see more of that kind of thing where you get a subscription to to Warner Brothers online library, and you pay a certain amount a month, and you can watch any movie you want from the library, like Netflix. And then that way, there's no incentive to pirate the copy because it's not costing you that much. And so I think the industry is going to go more toward those trends, hopefully, where there will be just less incentive for people to pirate because it's not worth the effort. I can just hit my Apple TV or my Netflix on my Blu-ray, and it just comes right up. And I'll $10 a month for that, sure. And then I can watch 100 movies if I want, or 2 movies. Okay, great. And so I think I know that I enjoy that flexibility, as a consumer. So I think that's their only hope, because they will never stop the actual digital duplication of things. It's now too ubiquitous. They can't reverse that. So they have to come ways to make it so that people don't have the incentive to download illegally.
Yeah. So just buy their shit, man. That's the best way to report. Buy their shit. Don't just download it illegally. Just buy it. It doesn't. It maybe take a couple months for the DVD to come out, but it will come out, people.
Well, again, I think the industry in some ways didn't help when they were charging $20 a CD when it cost them just pennies to manufacture, and built in some resentment from consumers who were like, wow, I'd like to listen to the song, but it would be $20 just to listen to this one song that I like.
I know. Yeah.
And so now that it's 99 cents, it's a little easier. You say, I can just buy the song I like. I don't want to listen to the 9 bad songs by that band. And same thing with, remember back in the day when a VHS copy cost $79? I'm old enough to remember that when, it would cost, and then they would slowly drop the prices. A couple of years later, people go, what? Now you can get one for $19.99? I paid $79 originally. So I think, that's not getting the consumers excited about, they go, what, I'm going to download it for free. These bastards are always ripping me off, rather than saying, here's a quality product with a low price, don't bother downloading it, just pick it up right here, buy it. And I think they're, hopefully that some of the trends are working in that direction.
Well, most of the companies sell it directly from their company. Go for it and buy it. It may be a little expensive, but go buy it. It's right there in front of your face. You don't need to illegally download it. That's the best way to support, man, because you're getting money in your pocket for the work that you do.
Right.
So you got to make money somehow, and it's. If you want to bitch and moan about the sales, then don't buy it at all.
Well, it is a serious concern. I mean, most people in the film industry, like you were talking about the NBA earlier, the average NBA or NFL star is in the league for 2 years, and so you think, oh, they're rich. He made $400,000 for every year he played. Yeah, for 2 years he made a total of $800,000, and he spent his entire youth, working, doing nothing but playing basketball, and now he's 26 years old and really doesn't, has to start a new career. And you start amortizing, okay, well, how much did he really make on a yearly basis for all the years he played basketball? You know what? He made $50,000 a year. He made a nice middle-class living. And so a lot of people in the film business are the same way. You kind of get a big payday when you get a movie in the theaters or something, and that's really great. But then people don't see the 3 or 4 years that goes on between them when there is no paycheck that comes in because you're working on a new project. And at the end of the day, you kind of average out, how much money am I really making? And you go, I make a middle-class living. I'm not super wealthy. I'm not poor, but and I think there's a lot of people in in that realm, in that level, who are being very affected by the changes in the business, and just like everywhere else, the middle class is kind of disappearing, and it's also disappearing in Hollywood. So it means you have to, reinvent yourself. You have to look at different ways to generate product and income, and it's in the middle of a giant revolution. Everybody knows it now, and hopefully some new paradigms will develop in the years to come, and I think they will. It's already changing. From each film that I've done with Weizsäcker Films, the market, the money, how the pie is divided up when the income comes in, is different for each film. It's changing that rapidly, and we're seeing a few positive things now beginning to happen. So, I just what you know how to do is make movies. It's what you keep doing.
Yeah, do what you can, man. All right, we're gonna wind down the time, but let's talk about your new projects that you got to come out again.
Well, we've got a couple of new things. We're looking at shooting a film in China, which is kind of interesting. It's a creature film that's based on China's Bigfoot legend.
Nice.
They have their own legend called the Yeren.
Yeren.
Yeah, it's Yeren. Yeah, not urine.
Yeren.
And so Yeren means wild man, and cryptozoologists are kind of interested in this story because we're in these remote mountains of China where they think they've seen these creatures. It's the same exact area where Gigantopithecus, the largest ape to ever walk on Earth, was, and they found fossils of these creatures in the caves up there. And for example, we've never really found monkey skeletons in the Northwest, but we have here in China, and so that adds an element of intrigue kind of to this legend. And so I was approached from a producer in China that asked if there was some kind of creature film or horror film or fantasy film that I like to do, because for a while those were not really done much in China. The government was, censorship and different things, the occult, different things like that, they weren't that interested in. But Avatar really changed their attitude and really opened that up. So that's kind of an interesting opportunity. And so the first person I called was my old boss, Chris Wiley, who is an expert in legends and myths and creatures, and so I called him up and I said, "Hey, have you ever had some kind of fantasy story, like a Chinese story?" And he said, "Oh yeah, the Yeren. I've always wanted to do a movie about the Yeren." And I was like, "Well, what's that?" And so he explained it to me, and we started doing research and found that it's really cool. And so what I kind of like about it is we've seen Bigfoot movies, but this is really a new variation on it, and it has its own unique properties, and because of the location and everything, it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's one project we're working on, and then we've got another one called Baby Zombies.
Baby Zombies.
Which is a little bit like a Gremlins kind of style movie. It's kind of comedy horror, and with that project we're developing the baby zombies as characters first, and we're beginning to put them online with Facebook pages and creating the concept of the baby zombies first before developing into a movie. It's this kind of new trend of transmedia, and when we developed the characters, we realized that these would make great video games. It would make cool figurines, and that there's a lot of properties they had beyond just making a movie about them. And so we're in the middle of developing that. So people should look out for Baby Zombies. They're coming for you really soon. And Chris's designs are absolutely fantastic. They're really funny, and they're cute and creepy at the same time. And so we've had a blast, and we just Baby Zombies. It's just so wrong, and so that's another one of our projects. And then we're developing a couple new, like I said, creature films. Chinese films, and also we're right now looking at shooting some films down in Australia. So we're going international.
Nice.
Because of opportunities, and money is not so easy to come by in America these days. So we're actually finding investors overseas are much more willing to take a chance on film and things right now. And so, we're expanding our borders.
Nice.
And those are a couple of the projects. If people want to keep tabs on what we're up to, we've got a website, wiseacrefilms.com, and we'll soon have a dedicated website for Baby Zombies and some of our other projects. And we've also got a couple of horror, more straight ahead horror things that we're doing. And again, information will be going up soon on Facebook, at our website, and hopefully we'll have some new productions coming out next year.
And this is all pretty much planned for next year. Any of it possibly coming out this year?
I don't think, we may do some filming this year, but we're not going to have any releases this year. Our last release was Bear, which came out last year, and we may have some things going online like YouTube and other kind of media things happening, but a feature release probably won't be until 2012 at this point. I look at the calendar, boy, the years go fast. So we're already in coming up on July here, so things these days, especially with the economy days, everything is going very slow. Developing a project, getting the funding, getting the distribution deals, it's a long, slow process from when you're starting something from scratch. And we've made a lot of headway with some of our projects, including the Chinese project. But there's a learning curve, and suddenly going off to shoot in China, dealing with state, government bureaus, and getting approvals and permits, and it's a learning process. And but it inches forward slowly. I get frustrated, and my producer in China say, "Look, you have to just be patient. It's just this is the way it is." And so, okay, all right, I'll work on something else while I'm waiting for you guys to call me back. But I think we will start seeing things, going online very soon. So that's kind of where we're at.
Huh. Well, go ahead and plug in some other web addresses for people to check out.
What's that?
Go ahead and plug in some web addresses for people to check out any of these future projects or your current projects that you've already released.
Yeah, I think wiseacrefilms.com, as it sounds, wiseacrefilms.com, will pretty much direct you to the different projects. It links you to the Facebook accounts, we're, like everybody these days, really starting to work with the social media, with Twitter, and getting accounts up for the different projects. And when, for example, when we do the Chinese project, we're going to be doing a blog, which actually will be an interesting one. I know a lot of times, who cares? But we're gonna go into China and basically do a behind the scenes about how do you do low budget filmmaking in China, and and hopefully everything will go really smooth and there won't be any drama or problems. But I've been warned that may not be a perfect scenario, because again, there's a lot of challenges with communication and different things that go on there. But I think that will be really interesting to kind of follow the progress of that project, and because it really is a co-production with Chinese producers and filmmakers and American filmmakers, and so I'm excited about the challenge, and so that'll be a lot of fun. And again, people can find stuff at that website, and then as other websites go online, the Baby Zombies website and different things. We haven't got our domain exactly. We have a bunch of different domains to choose between, but those will be up online, and we'll be doing different types of media for different projects.
Cool. Well, there you go. Ethan Wiley, director, writer, producer, and occasional puppeteer.
I still do puppeteering.
You do it like all the time, or just when you can?
about a bear, and we need a shot of the close-up of the bear head next to an actor, and we're told, no, you can't have the actor near the grizzly bear by your insurance company. And so, I'll still get in there and do some makeup effects when need be, and again, that's part of the fun of doing these low-budget movies. You usually wear about 8 different hats. I remember at one point I'll tell this little funny story on Black Ops. The director, Rule Randy, and I found ourselves at like 5 in the morning after the shoot. Everybody else has gone home, and he and I are down in the bowels of the ship cleaning up blood that splattered everywhere. We had like a scene where there's all this blood from the massacre, and everybody else, and it was a museum, and they were going to open it the next day. So we're there cleaning up the blood on our hands and knees after a grueling day of shooting. And I looked over to him and I said, "So it's great being a Hollywood producer, isn't it?" Yeah, that's the life. Sitting back with a cigar and a martini, barking orders at people. No, we were there on our hands and knees cleaning up fake blood because everybody else was gone. And so, it's independent filmmaking. That's the way it is.
That would have been great. It's like a new museum, and they come in there while you're cleaning up blood. The museum's under new management, right?
Yeah, well, there was really the worry of, like, some people could stumble in there the next day and find what they think are, like, someone's been murdered on the ship. No, you can taste it. It's just Caro syrup. Go ahead, taste it.
Making them taste it. Taste it, come on. We spent, like, a whole 7 days making the shit. You taste it.
Blood tastes good. And so, anyway, but it's fun because it takes you back to your roots, when you were in film school or high school, and doing it all yourself and all that, and so again, it's we have a lot of fun with these films, and I hope that people who watch them and rent them get a sense of that they're done by filmmakers who love making films and talking about genre filmmaking. My goal has always been to try to do it well, and that's still the goal, to make good horror movies, good creature movies that are fun and entertaining, and hopefully have some decent acting in them as well.
Yeah.
So, we'll just keep on trying to make a good one next time out.
Yeah, just keep on trying.
Yep.
There you go, people. Ethan Wiley.